Imagine a single second, counted in silence, while the lights of New York City flicker off one borough at a time. In that second, every hospital generator, every traffic signal, every neon promise of tomorrow dies. You are watching from your screen, and you realize it is not a blackout. It is a choice we are about to make together, or allow to be made for us before this year is over. Stay, and you will witness how 2025 becomes the hinge upon which the next century turns. Leave, and the door may close behind you forever. The year began with the kind of hush that precedes either prayer or panic. Snow in Nashville, wildfire smoke in Toronto, satellites capturing the earth in bruised purples and reds. Yet beneath the weather alerts, a quieter storm gathered. A census report quietly revised. A clause slipped into a defense bill. A line of code in a chip that no one noticed until it spoke Chinese as fluently as English. We sensed the tremor, but we kept scrolling. We always keep scrolling. Tonight, rewind the scroll. Zoom in on the pixels. Notice the fraying edges of the story we tell ourselves about the Republic. The flag still waves, yes, but the wind that animates it is no longer the same wind that carried it across Normandy, or even across the Mall in 1963. That wind is now filtered, monetized, algorithmically chilled. Our children feel it on their faces when they step outside and wonder why the air smells like copper and Wi-Fi. We hover between two versions of tomorrow. One is sleek, seamless, friction-free. It promises to cure cancer with a voice command, to end traffic with drone taxis, to replace every tedious argument with a personalized feed of consensus. The other is rougher, jagged, loud with disagreement. But it still has room for the unplanned thought, the accidental encounter, the vote that overturns every projection. Both futures are being built right now, in server farms cooled by Colorado River water, and in town hall gyms that still smell like popcorn and floor wax. The fight is not left versus right. It is autopilot versus hands on the wheel. Before we choose, we must remember who we were the last time we faced a year like this. In 1919, the world staggered out of influenza and into jazz. The old empires lay bankrupt. The maps were being redrawn with the blunt pencil of revenge. And ordinary people, millions of them, suddenly possessed radios in their living rooms. The air itself became a frontier. Voices that had once been confined to a village square now traveled at the speed of light. The word broadcast was borrowed from farming, to scatter seeds wide. The first seeds were music and news. Then came propaganda. Then came the idea that reality could be edited faster than it could be lived. A century later, we are broadcasting ourselves sick. The same physics that lifts a song across oceans now lifts a rumor into a riot before the fact-checker finishes her coffee. The difference is that in 1919, the listeners still knew the signal was coming from somewhere. In 2025, the signal is everywhere and nowhere, a weather system of its own. Picture a high school cafeteria in Phoenix. One table of sophomores debates whether the moon landing was faked, while at the next table, another group live streams a deep fake of their principal singing Cardi B. Both tables laugh, but only one of them is aware that the joke is training the model that will decide which of them gets a student loan. The algorithm is already taking notes on their laughter, measuring pitch, micro-expressions, the milliseconds between shock and delight. By the time they are seniors, the bank will know them better than their parents do. That is not science fiction. It is contract law, buried in the Terms of Service update none of us read last January. A generation is being shaped by invisible syllabi. Board a red-eye from Phoenix to Detroit. Seat 14A, a father who installs fiber optic cable for a living, calloused hands wrapped around a lukewarm coffee. Seat 14B, his daughter, 14. Earbuds in, editing a video of dance moves she will never perform in a mirror, but which 1.3 million strangers have already liked. She calls herself Lattice online. He still calls her Bug. Between them rests a silence that feels like the Grand Canyon at night. He wants to ask what she dreams of becoming. She wants to ask if he is proud. Neither dares, because both suspect the answer would arrive as a notification instead of a voice. They are flying above Nebraska when the pilot's voice crackles. Folks, we're being rerouted around a no-fly zone. Temporary restriction over Lake Michigan. Nothing to worry about, but something in the cabin tightens. Phones light up. A TikTok clip surfaces. Grainy footage of lights hovering above Chicago. Triangular, silent. Comments explode. Drones, aliens, psyop. The algorithm smells blood in the syntax. They land, the daughter's feed is 80% UFO content, each video more certain than the last. The father's news app leads with, "Unexplained aerial phenomenon prompts FAA inquiry." Same sky, two stories, both true enough to be dangerous. What neither feed mentions is that the no-fly zone was triggered by a classified test of a surveillance balloon designed to read heat signatures of protest crowds from 60,000 feet. The balloon worked perfectly. Democracy, less so. We are all passengers on that rerouted flight. Let us descend again, this time below the frost line, to the server farms outside Des Moines. The buildings are windowless, humming cathedrals. Inside, row after row of blinking lights keep the world's diary. The temperature is a perpetual spring. The air tastes of ozone and ambition. Technicians glide on scooters between aisles, swapping drives the way priests once changed candles. One technician, 23, wears a hoodie printed with the words "Move fast and break things." Underneath, in Sharpie, she has added, "Then apologize in a TED Talk." She pauses at a rack labeled Sentiment Archive, Heartland Cohort. With a few keystrokes, she could delete the last decade of a town's search history. The divorces, the cancers, the late-night queries about whether God forgives suicide. She does not delete it. She merely runs a compression algorithm that makes the data smaller, but indelible. The town will never know it has been archived, but the ads will grow eerily precise. Coupons for antidepressants, pop-up invitations to evangelical chat rooms, pre-approved loans for funeral expenses. She tells herself it is just data. She tells herself the town volunteered when they clicked agree. Yet at night, she dreams of cornfields whispering in binary, tassels bending toward her like antennae. She wakes up crying and does not know why. Rise, past the cornfields, past the jet stream, until the continent curves beneath you like a cracked blue marble. From this height, you can see the auroras of data centers glowing against the dark. Virginia, Oregon, Nevada. Each pulse is a heartbeat, but the body is dismembered. The mind is in Palo Alto. The memory is in Utah. The desire is mined in Shenzhen. The regret is cached somewhere in Iceland, where the servers are cooled by Arctic wind. You hover above Nebraska, and you notice a single light moving across the prairie. It is a pickup truck, 1998 model, headlights dimming whenever the radio plays a certain frequency. Inside, an old man drives his granddaughter home from her first protest. She holds a hand-painted sign that reads, "The future is a public good." The paint is still wet. It stains her fingers the color of sunrise. He tells her that in 1973, he sat in a cell for chaining himself to a redwood. She asks if it worked. He says the tree lived, the prison closed, the forest became a parking lot, but the photo of him in handcuffs ended up in a history book, so perhaps the tree won after all. She records the story on her phone, intending to post it. Then she looks at his face in the dark cab and deletes the video. Some stories, she decides, are meant to travel by heartbeat, not by feed. That deletion is the most revolutionary act of 2025, an unrecorded moment choosing to remain flesh. Midnight strikes. in 5 time zones at once. In Washington, the House votes on a bill no one has read because it was generated by AI overnight and amended in real time as lobbyists' bots negotiated with committee bots. The bill, titled the Civic Harmony Act, authorizes preemptive content moderation of any live stream predicted to incite unrest with 51% probability. The vote is gavelled through at 11:59 p.m., while C-SPAN cameras linger on empty chairs. In Austin, a teenage coder releases a patch that turns every smart speaker within earshot into a temporary mesh network, bypassing the newly throttled internet. The patch spreads at the speed of gossip. Within minutes, lullabies in Mississippi are being routed through refrigerators in Maine. The network is fragile, illegal, and alive. In San Francisco, a CEO watches the stock of his moderation company plummet in after-hours trading. He pours a whiskey older than his interns and dictates a memo. We are not the arbiters of truth. We are the gardeners of attention. When attention riots, we prune. He hits send, then deletes the draft. The algorithm has already archived it. And in a basement in Detroit, the veterans group from the Charles River lights candles because the power has gone out again. They pass around a printed copy of the First Amendment. One of them, the former drone analyst, traces the words with a trembling finger. Congress shall make no law. He stops at abridging and cannot continue. The candle sputters. In the flicker, every face looks like the same face at different ages. Outside, sirens converge on a data center where the mesh network has been traced. Protesters and police arrive simultaneously, each live streaming the other, each algorithmically amplified until the scene becomes a hall of mirrors. A young woman climbs atop an overturned car. She holds up the wet-painted sign from the Nebraska pickup. The future is a public good. The crowd repeats it until the words lose meaning and become pure sound. A vowel howl against the night. At that exact moment, a transformer explodes. The grid flickers. Screens go dark from Toledo to Tallahassee. For 38 seconds, America is unreadable to itself. No feeds, no polls, no trending hashtags. 38 seconds of analog night. People step onto balconies, look up, and see the Milky Way for the first time in their lives. No one takes a picture. The cameras are blind. In the silence, something ancient stirs. A grandfather in New Orleans lifts his saxophone to the window and plays a note that has no name. The note drifts across the darkness and lands in a child's ear in Boise, who will grow up to compose symphonies for cities that do not yet exist. The blackout ends. The lights return. The feeds roar back to life, but the note remains irreversible. The days that follow are unlike any we have language for. Congress calls hearings. The mesh network is labeled domestic cyber vandalism. Yet the patch is already mutating, teaching itself to hide inside refrigerator firmware, inside car key fobs, inside the lonely smart toaster in your kitchen. It is no longer a tool. It is a habitat for disobedience. Markets fluctuate wildly. The moderation company's stock rebounds when it announces a new product. Empathy engines that simulate remorse for wrongful takedowns. The commercial shows a holographic apology customized to the user's childhood accent. Pre-orders sell out in 6 minutes. But beneath the spectacle, subtler shifts occur. In the blackout's afterglow, 300 strangers in St. Louis form a human chain to pass bottled water to neighbors whose pipes froze. No one live streams it, so it spreads by word of mouth. An oral tradition rebooted in 4D. A librarian in Tucson starts a memory sanctuary where people may store stories that are never digitized. The waiting list is 3 months long. A teacher in Appalachia replaces the morning Pledge of Allegiance with 2 minutes of silence facing the window. Attendance rises. None of these actions are revolutionary in the old sense. They do not seize power. They simply refuse to feed it. They are negative space in the circuitry, and that absence is louder than any manifesto. So where do we stand tonight, you and I? The crossroads is not a fork in the road. It is a moment when the road itself becomes porous. Step carefully, and you fall through the map into the territory we stopped naming. The choice is no longer between left and right, progress and tradition, human and machine. The choice is between being read and being heard, between the ledger and the lullaby, between the feed and the flesh. Look at your hands. Yes, now. They are the only devices that cannot be updated over the air. They remember the weight of every hand you have ever held, every vote you ever cast in a booth with a curtain instead of a cookie notice. Use them. Use them to turn off the screen that mediates your neighbor. Use them to break bread with someone whose feed enrages you. Use them to write, actually write, a letter to the child you once were, promising that 2025 will not be the year we surrendered the last square inch of soul. Fold that letter into a paper plane and throw it from whatever height you occupy. Someone will catch it. Someone always does. And when the lights flicker again, as they will, do not reach for your phone first. Reach for the darkness itself. It is not empty. It is full of the unsent messages of everyone who ever lived. Listen, there is a saxophone note still traveling. It is looking for the next ear honest enough to carry it. Let it be yours. Because tomorrow's history will not be written by the loudest algorithm. It will be written by the quiet network of pulses between people who decided that being unreadable to the machine was, finally, the most human thing they could become. The crossroads is here. The door is closing. But doors are only hinges in disguise. Step through. Bring your heartbeat. Leave the feed behind.